Ladies and gentlemen, woohoo! Welcome back to another episode of MPJ Rock Album Reviews, and I am with my wonderful friends and panel, to Dom, to Trish, to Paul. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, what's the show all about? Afternoon. What's the show all about? Well, we review all the latest rock albums from everywhere, from indie rock to hard rock, and we rate them out of 5, and we also then say which album would we buy. So today's, for example, we're head to head. We have the Pigeon Detectives versus Blur. Will any of them score more than 20 and get into our Hall of Fame? Or will they not? Or will they sink to the very bottom? So we got Pigeon Detectives versus Blur. Well, who are Pigeon Detectives? Well, their new album is called TV Show. They got Matt Bowman on vocals, Oliver Main on guitar, Ryan Wilson on guitar, Dave Best on guitar, and Jimmy Naylor on the drums. Pigeon Detectives are English. Woohoo! We don't have enough. We're having more of them recently. Indie rock band from Rothwell in Leeds, West Yorkshire, formed in 2004. The band have released five albums from 2007 to present. They performed at the Reading and Leeds festivals in 2006, and they were tagged the most band likely to leap to the main stage in 2007 in an NME review. The band returned to festival in 2007, performed on the main stage in 2011. So NME were right. The band is in fact named after the 1970s French cartoon. Okie dokie then. Let's start with you then, Trish. Pigeon Detectives. Had you heard of them? Did you like them? Did you not like them?
I have heard of them because Lee really likes them. But alternative indie rock isn't really my preferred genre of rock.
Lee, your husband, I presume. Just for the viewing public to know who the heck Lee is. So.
Yeah, my husband. But as always on this journey, I remain open-minded and give everything a fair listen.
I have to stop you there, Trish, because there's going to be so many broken hearts.
Oh, I know, right?
Why?
Because
to find out you're married and
sorry, adoring public. Sorry.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, right.
You have to put it out there as a public notice. Apologise.
You redeemed yourself.
Yeah, but there's hope, Paul, because Lee's Pigeon Detectives is one of his favourite bands. So I mean.
Okay. The album starts off with the toe-tapping tune "Falling to Pieces." The rest of the album flows in this way with upbeat drums and catchy guitars. While I was listening to the album, I could hear a sound akin to another band, the Vaccines. This album is the kind of songs that on a set I could see them playing at a festival to get the crowd jumping up and down. As an album, though, to listen to, the songs all sound similar. Nothing stands out. It's a nice feel-good album for this genre. I wouldn't turn it off, but for me, it's not a go-to album, but it's still solid.
Paul, Pigeon Detectives.
Yeah, this is a good, energetic album of the indie rock scene. However, for me, Two Door Cinema is far more energetic, and we listened to Snuts a couple of months back, and that was more different and out there. And that's the problem, as Trish has pointed out. It was a bit samey, and there was, even though I would like to say that, and they are a good band, but there's nothing about them that really stand out above what is happening. I think they had a platinum album back in 2005, but they don't seem to have taken the mantle up from them and moved on. So, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, I did enjoy the album. I enjoyed the energy they portrayed. But there's bands that have more energy. There's bands that are more tuneful. There are bands that are more doing stuff that is more appealing than what they are. So that was the only thing. It was a bit samey all the way through.
Now, talk about samey. Let's move on to Dom.
What's that mean?
You do. Yeah, I'm teasing you, Dom.
I know. Pigeon Detectives. We've seen them live a couple of times. They're a really good live act, actually. This kind of album that has a feel of it's kind of a really mature, assured sort of indie. I mean, they've been around for like 20 years at least, haven't they? They know they're part of the old school indie that stuck it out. Back in the day when I used to read The Enemy, when The Enemy used to be on paper, used to be a newspaper, indie bands, you'd have a different indie band every week. A band would, if it lasted a couple of months, that was amazing. They've stuck it out. It's, as others have said already, great at a festival. They are really, I think, a live act rather than an album act to really enjoy. They're the kind of people that you'd really enjoy seeing at Victorious, and then while you're waiting for the band you really want to see to come on afterwards. You know what I mean? I think that's what they're like. You'd enjoy it. They'd get you in the mood. It's always going to make you happy. Makes me feel good to be a grown-up indie kid, because that's what I really am deep down. But I think, as the others have said as well, it's a bit of a meh album. There's nothing really stand out. It's kind of, I think playing it by numbers, if I was honest, I think. But talented, but nothing stand out about it.
I don't listen. I'm an indie kid too. Well, I'm a bit of everything really, but sometimes indie can really hit my sweet spot. And I enjoyed the album. I loved it. I think Falling to Pieces, I Can't Stop made my playlist. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did like it, but it stuck with me, and it was obviously in comparison to what they're up against. I really enjoyed the album. I mean, really enjoyed it. Like I would put this album on, up there. Was it as good as something like Fall Out Boy's album? But or the Snuts even. Maybe not. But it was a thoroughly enjoyable album. And maybe, hey, if this is music by numbers, give me numbers. I'm going to play Sudoku then all day long with this one, because I really enjoyed the album. I thought it was really fun. It was really entertaining. It was toe tapping. And I would definitely, if they come up and play local, I'd see them live. In fact, I missed out, didn't they? I think they were at the Wedge Rooms, aren't they, or something, which is for them a really small venue, really, down in Portsmouth. So, didn't get tickets. But totally enjoyed it. Cracking album. Really enjoyed it. Okay, who are they up against? Well, they are up against the mighty, mighty Blur. Who are Blur? Their new album, The Ballad of Darren, and their comeback album. The members are Damon Albarn, Graham Coxon, Alex James, and Dave Rowntree. Another English rock band formed in London in 1988. Their Modern Life is Rubbish in 93, Park Life in 94, and The Great Escape in 95. As a result, the band helped popularise the Britpop genre and achieved mass popularity in the UK, aided by a chart battle with rival band Oasis in 1995, dubbed Battle of the Brits Pop. The seventh album, Think Tank 2003, continued with the experimentation with electronic sounds, and was shaped by Albarn's growing interest in hip-hop and world music, featuring more minimal guitar work. Coxon left early in the sessions of the Think Tank, and Blur disbanded after the tour in 2009. Blur reunited with Coxon and embarked on a European reunion tour. In the following years, they released several singles and compilations and toured internationally. In 2012, they received a Brit Award for Outstanding Contribution to Music. Their eighth album, The Magic Whip, in 2005, was their first in 12 years and its sixth consecutive Blur studio album to top the British charts. And after a Magic Whip tour, Blur went on a hiatus until the ninth album, The Ballad of Darren, scheduled for 2 July, which happened, and it's out. And it's here, and they've had sellout concerts. A few of my friends went to saw them up in London in July. So Paul, let's start with you then. Let's start with a bit of Blur. Were you a Blur or an Oasis man back in the 90s?
Well, I enjoyed them both, but Oasis for me were the better band with the better songs, to be honest. But and they had the more rockier take on their music. But it doesn't mean I didn't enjoy Blur just as much. I thought they were great. They had some great albums, fantastic songs. And then we have this album, which is an absolute masterpiece. as the most miserable, depressing album that I have ever listened to. This just about is an ode to misery. Darren is the most boring, miserable person that they could possibly have done a ballad for. And there's one song that kind of saves the day by Barbaric, but the more I listen to that, the more depressed I feel listening to it. So, this was an absolute crap of an album, basically. I'm not like happen to dig at Dom or any of his things, but the last album that Bowie produced was sort of his reflections on his past and what have you. And even like heavy critics were saying, well, this is an interesting album. In other words, it wasn't a very good album, basically, because it was quite miserable, him looking back on his past and what have you. But this was absolutely dreadful. I even a hardened Blur fan would have difficulty finding anything like apart from Barbaric on this album. It was terrible.
Wow. Okay, Dom, were you Blur and Oasis? Have to ask the question, of course, the standard question.
I was Blur all the way, I'm afraid. I like both as well, but Blur I think was more indie, so that was where I was. And here, I think I listened to a different album from Paul. Got kind of Damon Albarn. It's a bit of a lounge lizard. I'm interpreting. You're saying misery. I'm saying lounge lizard. Bit of orchestra backing is a good sign of an indie band maturing. But Damon's voice is really awesome, instantly recognisable. It's kind of comfy and reassuring while you're listening to the album. He's lost a little bit of his Britishness, I think, in his voice. Although I think my favourite was St Charles's Square, where he definitely goes full Mockney. And he's got this nice disjointed, wonky staccato style of music. Band trying really, really hard, not to look like they're not trying hard. Do you know what I mean? I love that. That's just really hits my buttons. So there's also a nice little bit of electronica in there that gives a nice link to Gorillaz, of course. And something I'm just reminded that this is a band that's just really experienced, totally adaptable. They're putting out all sorts of different kind of things. It is a different album. I'm a bass player, and so I always like to tune into the low end whenever I listen to music. And Alex James's bass lines in this, they're just really, really nice. So I thought it was a really simple album. It was kind of straightforward, but really groovy. So yeah, I liked it. I enjoyed it.
Trish, Blur or Oasis?
I wasn't really either, but if I had to pick, probably Oasis. The Ballad of Darren. Not the start you expect from an album. You want something to grab you and draw you in wanting more. Unfortunately, The Ballad is a disappointing opening track for me, singing about breakups. It's just nothing, boring. So I was thinking, am I actually going to be able to listen to the whole of the album if this is the opening track to go by? But then the tempo ups a bit with St Charles Square, and then up again with Barbaric. Again, another song about breakups. I have to say, on Barbaric, Damon's vocals did sound similar to David Bowie, which, for this album, was a bonus to me. Then we revert back to melancholy with the Everglades. All in all, this album really gave me nothing that could say I wanted to listen to it more than once, because I didn't, and struggled with one listen. It's just not my bag or my personal preference. But to adoring fans of Blur, I'm sure they will give it high accolades and praise.
Blur. I was a Blur man through and through. I hated Oasis, but I hated them because of their style and their attitude. Whereas Blur were light, they were fun, they were fluffy, they were funny, they were absolutely brilliant. And obviously, I've not kept in touch, but they were like, I adored Blur back in the 90s. I loved them. I thought they were brilliant. And this is the total antipathy of everything I loved about Blur. Everything. It was other than Arctic Monkeys, the worst album I have listened to since I've been doing this rock review. It is absolutely a pile of poo. It is terrible. It is just, for me and my listening pleasure, I appreciate what Dom is saying in terms of their style and their ability, but his voice, no, not for me. Barbaric was, I've told, the square one was, it was all right, and then Barbaric, yes, please, yes. And then after that, nothing. I could not listen to this album again. It is absolutely, and I have tried to listen to it again just to kind of go through it. But Ballad of Darren, Ballad of Pooh, just awful. Just for me personally, it's just. Barbaric is the only thing that saves this album, really, for me. And I am gutted. Genuinely gutted. I was genuinely really looking forward to this album because people said they'd gone and seen him in concert and he was really good. But of course, they only played a few tracks on this album. But I mean, for diehard, maybe for people who have listened to Blur and the progression they made from that Britpop to more electronic kind of worldy stuff. But for me, no, I'm afraid I did not enjoy this album in the slightest. And you know what I'm like? I'm probably the most easygoing voter here, really, I suppose, along with Trish. But I'm quite consistent. But I did not enjoy this album, I'm afraid, and I am genuinely gutted by that, genuinely. But there we go. Right, wow. Let's get to vote. Let's find out what Dave thought, and let's find out what we're going to vote for. We'll leave Dave to last, so that we're not influenced by what he's got to vote for. Let's start with Pigeon Detectives then. Trish.
2.5.
Paul.
3.
Dom.
4.
Dave gave a 3.5, and I also give it a 4. But I quite enjoyed it. So we are looking at 10.5, 14.5, 15, 17. Pretty strong for an indie band for us. But there we go. Blur then. Paul. Half. Dom.
I'm going to give it 4.5.
4.5. Trish.
0.5.
Dave, give it a 2.5. There we go. If it wasn't for Barbaric, it would be getting a big fat 0. So it gets a 0.5 from me as well. But Tom, I feel for you, brother. It's like, I feel for you, brother. I really do. I really do. 5, 5.5, 5.5, 6, 8, 8.5. It's not going down into the major echelons of Arctic Monkeys and quite a few other bands out there, so 8.5 isn't a complete disaster. I suppose, as we said, it was a bit of a wasted 4.5, but there we go. So, but there we are. So, without any shadow of a doubt, we are buying, apart from Dom, would be buying Blur. Everybody else here, unreservedly, would be buying Pigeon Detectives. Pigeon Detectives are the winner of this battle of the bands. Congratulations to them. I gutted I'm not going to see you guys at the Wedge Rooms down in Portsmouth, so good luck with that one. And so, summing that up, thank you very much to my panel, to Paul, to Dom, to Trish, and to Dave, who's not here. Please, if you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe, and please share our posts on Facebook, and keep tuning in for more latest album rock reviews from the MPJ crew, and also some wicked interviews. We are interviewing bands galore at the minute, so please tune to the channel. Thank you very much, and goodbye, and keep rocking.
Bye.